Growing up in the Cape Flats in the 90s is considered the peak arcade era, as most kids would spend their afternoons coming from school and heading straight for the game shop is what we called it. Most likely in someone's garage with between 5 to 10 cabinets. It was a real joy when all of your friends would meet up there, placing your 50 cents on a machine to let everyone know that you're playing next, and for some reason there was a sense of respect that nobody would dare touch that coin when it sits there, even if you walk away. Although there were so many arcades all over Cape Town back then, these were, in my opinion, the most popular games of them all. Please note that this is in no way ranking these games from best to worst or from worst to best. That's completely objective, and since nostalgia is attached to all of these, some people might disagree. So just consider this as 10 most played arcade games growing up in Cape Town. Number 10. Aero Fighters 2. Aero Fighters 2 was an amazing sequel to an already great game. Released in 1994 by Neo Geo, it was one of those games best played with a friend, and anyone would be more than welcome to join. A top-down scrolling shooter, I would consider this to be one of the early bullet hell games. It was tough, ridiculously tough, but still one of the best scrolling shooters even to this day. It still looks and plays really well. If you've played this game growing up in the 90s, chances are that you spent quite a bit of money on it, or just left after the 2 minutes you spent playing it. But what an amazing 2 minutes it was. At number 9 we have Sunset Riders. Now this is a side-scrolling shooter developed by Konami and released in 1991. Another co-op friendly game, and I have so many memories with this one. It was a tough one as well, but with enough time spent on this game, you knew exactly when to jump, where to shoot, and when to duck. If you've seen this game in one of the game shops, most likely you have, you'd probably also know that this cabinet was damn loud. Always the loudest machine in the shop, but also one of the most popular. Of the 4 playable characters, everyone always chose the guy with the shotgun. The shotgun being widespread gave players an advantage on enemies and bosses, especially the first boss at the end of the first level taking cover behind the barrels. The graphics are good as well, with this cartoonish look to it, and it has a design that I don't think will ever get outdated or ever look outdated. It just looks really good. One of the more colorful games on this list as well, but it's still really fun to play. At number 8 we have the Simpsons Arcade. Now I'm pretty sure that this was one of the more expensive cabinets for the local shops to have, and although not very common within the areas of Cape Town, it was one of, if not the most popular cabinet at some of the malls back then. It was always packed with kids standing around the machine waiting for their turn, and I was impatient and never really got to play it that much, unfortunately. One of the cons of arcades being so popular back then, I guess. This game was also released by Konami in 1991, and they did an amazing job with this game. The graphics are spot on with the show, the humor is there, you had up to 4 players, and this game is still considered internationally as one of the best arcade games of all time. The premise is simple. You play as either Marge, Homer, Bart, or Lisa, and you have to save Maggie from Smithers, who kidnaps her, and ultimately Mr. Burns at the nuclear power plant at the end of the game. This is still considered one of the best Simpsons games of all time, and one that I really wish that I had more time playing as a kid. At number 7 we have Double Dragon, the father of all beat-em-up games, the one that started it all. It never really aged well, and well, it never really went away either. And playing this with a friend was so cool, better than playing alone, and probably because it was designed that way. Double Dragon was released in 1987 by Taito and developed by Technos Japan, and it was a tough game. But because at the time there was nothing like it, it became an instant success, and these machines flooded every arcade in Cape Town. It was released in the perfect time as well. Kung Fu movies were massively popular back then, and everybody wanted to imitate it in some way. Double Dragon provided the perfect outlet for kids to feel like they were in one of those movies. This game lasted for quite a while, and no other Double Dragon game had more of an impact than this one. but to be quite honest, I do think the Neo Geo Double Dragon fighting game is a little bit underrated. How can you not have Mortal Kombat on any list of arcades? At number 6, Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 1 was good, but Mortal Kombat 2 was amazing. I was really still young when this game was released, but it was one that I kept coming back to. I remember getting my ass beat all the time by the older kids, and I sucked at this game. I could never do the combos that they did, and I still really think that this game has one of the most amazing combo mechanics in any game I've played. It just looks really good and the moves are quite fluid. Released in 1993 by Midway, it really took off after the success of the first one. Also considering that this sequel improved the game so much with a bigger roster as well. And whenever I played this game, I'd always have one eye on the door behind me, afraid that one of the older kids would walk in and challenge me. Because fighting games had this unspoken rule everywhere. I remember one kid beating me in this game, and I challenged him again and he beat me again. This went on for a while and I lost all my allowance trying to beat him and I never could. That was one of the saddest memories I have in one of these game shops. At number 5 we have Metal Slug. Heavy Machine Gun has become synonymous with this game. We all know that sound all too well. Metal Slug is a really good run-and-gun side-scrolling shooter released by SNK in 1996. The mechanics still hold up quite well in the modern era of video games and the graphics are top quality. I don't think I can praise this game enough as even the sound quality is really good. Something that I particularly remember about this game growing up is how satisfying it felt stabbing enemies, shooting down helicopters, and even blowing up explosive barrels. There was just something about it, and whenever I hear the soundtrack, it takes me back to when I was a kid. This game wasn't really that tough, at least not like the other games on this list, but it was a good thing for us. It allowed us to spend more time playing the game and helped us spend our money sparingly. With all these remakes coming out recently, I wouldn't want a remake of this game, but a proper sequel and not a mobile one. So please SNK, give us a PC and console release that captures the magic that this timeless classic has to offer. At number 4 we have Street Fighter 2, probably the most influential fighting game of all time. And who would have thought that this sequel would be this good compared to the first one? Which I'm not going to get into right now, but I know many people don't even know it exists. It's the kind of game that you don't just happen to come across, you have to actively go and look for it. Street Fighter 2 was released by Capcom in 1991, which seems to have been a really good year for the arcades. It changed everything, and no matter the place, every game shop had Street Fighter 2, at least some variation of the game, considering that Capcom released a different version every day. It was the first really competitive game, I think, at the arcades, where kids would actively challenge each other and kick the opponents off a machine. It was really fun and the combo system worked really well. One of the first fighting games to have a working combo system. The graphics were amazing, the music also stands out with it being very specific to each fighter and which region they were from. I still listen to Guile's theme quite often on my playlist. I recently played Street Fighter 3 as well, for the first time actually, and that game I think is just as good as this one. Improved tremendously stylistically. I just wish it had the same popularity as this one, at least in Cape Town or the areas that I played. At number 3 we have Pac-Man. Pac-Man is undisputed as the highest grossing arcade game of all time, and it should be of no surprise that it's on this list. It's a maze action game released in 1980 by Namco. It was one of the only games at the shops that the older people would play. I guess that just shows the impact it had. My dad would play this game, my uncle would play this game, my mom knew about this game. It did me a huge favor that made my dad want to go to the arcades and I would get to play all the other games while he was on this cabinet. Such a simple idea, yet such a fun game. It has the perfect balance of easy to play, hard to master. And I think this is the one game that had the biggest impact on arcades in Cape Town. That this game single-handedly opened the door for all other arcade games to become popular. This machine could still be found in many game shops all over Cape Town up until the dying days of the arcade. It was there from the start, and was there until the end. At number 2 we have Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Now I'm not sure if this game was as popular internationally as it was here in Cape Town, but it's another one that everyone knows of. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up game about Cadillacs, dinosaurs, rocket launches, in a dystopian alternate universe. I mean, what's not to love? Except the driving level, that kinda sucked. Probably still listed as many people's favorite arcade game in Cape Town. It was easy enough to complete with a single credit, but the drawback was that the game was very short, but awesome nonetheless. Another important part was just how the game handled. Every attack felt good, and every time you'd get to use the rocket launcher on a main boss when you'd actually hit them, it felt massive. With 4 selectable characters, Mustafa was the choice for most people in this game. Long legs that had quite the reach when kicking, or best when running and leaping forward feet first. I still play this game to this day, but it had such immense popularity in the game shops. At number 1 we have the King of Fighters. Now I could put any of the King of Fighters games on this list, as it was each hugely popular in their own right, and in different areas of Cape Town. But one that I particularly played more than any other was the King of Fighters 99. This game had reached massive heights in Cape Town, with the anime style, huge roster of characters, being able to fight with a team of 3, which extended the game time compared to the other fighting games, with each character not only looking different, but each having their own unique fighting style. I could go on about why this game was so popular, but I think you get the message. It was easily the most crowded game of any game shop, and other than the fact that every single arcade had this cabinet, it would always be updated with the newest version every year. Every area also had their best player in the game that nobody could beat. The only shame is that we never hosted local tournaments of these top players to truly find the best one. That would have been an amazing addition to an amazing era. Arcades have been a staple of growing up in the 90s. A place where kids would gather, and it would keep them off the streets as well. With all that's been going on in the world, and our reliance on mobile phones and the online world, maybe one day we could bring back the joy and friendship we gained back then. I still believe there is a market out there for the industry, and I hope it makes a comeback. I'm still waiting for Cadillacs and Dinosaurs too. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to this video if you'd like to see more content featuring arcade games, and in fact classic games in general. Have a good one. Cheers.